She was just 9 years old, a girl with a backpack full of colored pencils and a smile that could disarm any room. Charlise Mutten had been excited to see her mother. It was a summer visit she'd been looking forward to, one that should have been filled with bedtime stories, family dinners, and childhood laughter. Instead, it ended with a barrel abandoned in the bush, sealed tight, hidden far from where anyone would find it by chance. Charlise never made it home, and the story of what happened during those final hours in the Blue Mountains still chills investigators to this day. Not because there were no answers, but because the answers they found were almost too calculated, too cruel, too cold. She vanished into the night, never to be seen alive again. It began with a visit to a secluded mountain estate, a property tucked into the wilderness, surrounded by towering trees, locked gates, and long gravel roads. That's where her mother, Callista, was staying with her fiancé, Justin Stein. Charlise had no reason not to trust them, but trust in this story proved fatal. For 5 days, police searched every trail, scanned aerial footage, called her name through thick forest air. The town hoped. The country waited. But someone already knew the truth, because someone had gone to great lengths to keep that truth buried. Inside a rusted barrel was the final trace of Charlise Mutten. The weight of what was inside, both literally and emotionally, would shake the public to its core. There was a gun. There were sandbags. There were lies. And there was a timeline that would fracture under pressure. 2 gunshots, a locked gate, and a secret engagement that no one questioned until it was far too late. What really happened to Charlise Mutten? And did the one person who was supposed to protect her do the unthinkable? Charlise Mutten was born into a world that wasn't always stable, but she was the kind of child who could find light in dark places. Raised by her maternal grandmother in Coolangatta, Queensland, she lived most of her young life surrounded by consistency, quiet routines, and the kind of love that comes from someone trying to give a child a second chance at peace. She was curious, bright, gentle. Teachers remember her as soft-spoken, always willing to help, always eager to learn. She liked coloring and playing in the yard with her friends at school. She loved animals. She was often quiet in class, but attentive, always drawing, always observing. She was 9, but already seemed to carry herself like she knew the world could be uncertain. Charlise's relationship with her mother, Callista Mutten, was complicated. Callista had spent time in prison and struggled with substance abuse, but over time had re-entered Charlise's life gradually through supervised visits, phone calls, and letters. By the end of 2021, she was trying again, trying to rebuild that connection. It was around that time Charlise was invited to stay with her mother during the holidays. The setting was unusual. Her mother wasn't staying at a typical family home. She was with her new fiancé, Justin Stein, at a luxury estate in Mount Wilson in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. The property belonged to Stein's wealthy family. It was gated, isolated, surrounded by bushland, tranquil on the outside, but remote and hard to reach. Charlise arrived in late December for what was supposed to be a 2-week stay. Photos show her smiling beside her mother on New Year's Eve. She wore a pink t-shirt. Her hair was neatly tied back. She looked happy, but something about that visit would mark the final moments of her life. On January 11th, Charlise was last seen alive. What happened that day has been dissected by investigators in almost every detail. What she ate, who she spoke to, what time she was seen by witnesses. Earlier that afternoon, she was reportedly with Justin Stein. According to later statements, he took her for a drive. They were gone for hours. Charlise didn't return to school. She didn't speak to her grandmother. No phone calls. No updates. By January 13th, Callista told police she couldn't find her daughter. She claimed Charlise had been with Justin. She said she assumed he had dropped her off at school. But when investigators checked, the school had never reopened, and Charlise had never left the property alive. The last confirmed sighting of Charlise Mutten was that Wednesday evening, around 7:30 p.m. What happened after remains the dividing line between innocence and premeditation, between what Charlise expected her holiday to be and what it became. January 13th, 2022, a missing persons report is filed in New South Wales. 9-year-old Charlise Mutten is gone. Her mother, Callista, tells police she last saw her daughter 2 days earlier. She says Charlise was with Justin Stein. She says she believed Justin had dropped her off at school. But when police arrive at the school grounds, it's quiet. Classes hadn't resumed after the holidays. There were no students, no teachers, no Charlise. That's when the clock starts ticking. Charlise hasn't been seen since the evening of January 11th. Now it's January 13th. 2 full days, unaccounted for. Detectives move quickly. The Mount Wilson estate is locked down. They begin canvassing the property. Every room, every shed, every inch of the surrounding forest. Search teams are deployed. Helicopters fly overhead. Dogs are brought in. Bushland is scanned. Locals are interviewed. But there's no sign of the child. Justin Stein's version of events is confusing. He tells investigators he dropped Charlise at the school gate that morning, that she walked in alone, that she was fine. But surveillance footage from that area shows no such thing. No red Uda, no schoolgirl with a backpack, nothing. Stein's movements over those 2 days raise red flags. On January 12th, the day after Charlise was last seen, he's captured on CCTV entering a hardware store. He purchases 5 20-kilogram bags of sand. Then he drives to a BP station, then to another store, then to a remote area near the Colorado River. Over 60 kilometers from the estate, a red Holden Uda matching his is spotted on roadside cameras. Police track the vehicle through toll data and GPS signals. He drives in loops, stops at unfamiliar places, returns to the estate, leaves again. They trace his route across several towns. At one point, he's seen stopping beside a rural bush track for nearly 20 minutes. No explanation, no phone calls, no purchases, just a pause. Meanwhile, search crews begin expanding their perimeter, from the estate to the river, from the river to nearby roadways. And then, January 18th, a breakthrough. In dense brush near the Colorado River, police discover a large metal barrel. It's old, sealed, awkwardly placed at the edge of a clearing. Inside, wrapped in plastic and hidden beneath sand, they find Charlise Mutten's body. The barrel had been transported, loaded, dumped. The search was over, but the story was just beginning. 2 gunshot wounds, one to her lower back, another, closer, more devastating, fired from a short distance in her face. She had also been given quetiapine, an antipsychotic medication not prescribed to her, likely administered to sedate her before the end. The crime wasn't spontaneous. It was methodical, planned, covered. Police return to Justin Stein. They press him for answers. His story shifts. He accuses Callista, then denies involvement altogether, then claims confusion. But the digital trail is relentless. His phone, his car, his purchases, his route, it all leads to one conclusion. Whatever happened in the hours after January 11th, Charlise didn't vanish. She was taken, and the person who took her had time to think about how to make her disappear. The discovery of Charlise Mutten's body sends shockwaves through Australia. 9 years old, hidden in a barrel, discarded like trash. But this wasn't just a murder. This was calculated, cold, and deeply personal. Detectives waste no time. The investigation enters overdrive. And all signs point back to one man, Justin Stein. He's not just Callista Mutten's fiancé. He's the last known person to see Charlise alive. He's the one who gave the ever-changing stories. He's the one seen buying sandbags and fuel. He's the one whose Uda made a quiet, secret trip to a remote riverbank. They arrest him. January 18th, 2022. Justin Stein is charged with the murder of Charlise Mutten. But even as he sits behind bars, questions multiply. Why'd he do it? What happened in that house? Did Callista know? Did she help? The NSW police begin reconstructing the timeline, minute by minute. They analyze CCTV footage, cell tower data, purchases, gas receipts, search history, everything. They trace the movement of the red Uda. On January 12th, Stein drives it from Mount Wilson to Marsden Park, stops at Bunnings, buys sand, buys fuel. Cameras capture him calmly walking the aisles. No sign of panic, no urgency. as if it were just another day. Then he drives north, to Colorado, to a location near the river. Surveillance cameras pick him up again. There's a strange detour. He stops by another property near Lower Colorado Road. Police believe it's where he first tried to dispose of the barrel, but couldn't. Too heavy, too exposed. So he drags it back into the Utah, drives again, stops farther in, and finally leaves the barrel at the edge of thick bushland. Forensics teams sweep the area. They find tire impressions, shovel marks, and fragments of the plastic Charlise was wrapped in. The barrel itself is evidence. Inside, sand, tape, fabrics, residue of quetiapine. Investigators also search the Mount Wilson property. Inside a bedroom, they find traces of blood on the bed frame, on the mattress, on the carpet, in a hallway. Charlise had been shot with a small caliber firearm. Twice. One shot to the back, fatal. One to the head, likely after she was already unconscious. But the weapon is missing. Police never recover it. Stein never admits where it went. Meanwhile, Charlise Mutten's role becomes murkier. She's not charged. Not yet. But she is scrutinized. Her timeline is hazy. Her version of events is riddled with inconsistencies. She tells police she trusted Justin, that he was supposed to be taking care of Charlise while she dealt with medical issues. But there's no hospital record, no confirmed appointments, only scattered messages and missed calls. Some believe she was manipulated. Others aren't so sure. Charlise had only recently been reunited with her mother after living with her grandmother full-time. She was supposed to be starting a new life. Instead, within days of visiting, she was dead. The nation mourns. Vigils are held. Strangers gather with flowers and stuffed animals near the riverbank where she was found. Tears are shed for a child most had never met. A child who should have been in a classroom, not a barrel. Courtrooms are places of truth. But in this trial, the truth drips slowly. One calculated lie at a time. Justin Stein pleads not guilty. He blames Charlise's mother, Charlise Mutten, says she pulled the trigger, says he only helped clean up the mess, because he was scared, because he didn't know what else to do. The courtroom falls silent. No one saw that coming. Stein claims that Charlise confessed to killing Charlise, said it happened in a moment of madness, then begged him to get rid of the body. But Charlise denies everything. She says she never hurt her daughter, that she never even saw Charlise the day she went missing. Only heard from Justin, who said everything was fine. Now it's his word against hers, and the jury watches, listens, takes notes, but no one can ignore the facts. Justin Stein was the one caught on CCTV. Justin Stein was the one buying sandbags, fuel, dragging a barrel, alone. He admits driving the Utah. He admits disposing of the body, but insists he did it out of panic, out of love for Charlise, to protect her. He paints himself as a man trapped, cornered, used. But prosecutors rip that story apart. They present digital evidence, location data from his phone, search history, messages he deleted. Every detail matches the movements of the Red Utah. Every action appears intentional, planned. There's no mention of calling for help. Number 000, emergency call. No attempts to revive Charlise. Just a trail of preparation. Prosecutors show the jury images of Charlise's final resting place. A lonely barrel near a river. A 9-year-old child dumped like garbage. They remind the court, Charlise had special needs. She was on medication. She was trusting. She didn't stand a chance. A forensic pathologist takes the stand, describes the injuries in painful detail. A bullet to the back, another to the head. No signs of a struggle. No defensive wounds. The room grows colder. And then there's the biggest blow. Traces of quetiapine found in her system. Enough to sedate her. Enough to keep her still. It wasn't just a killing. It was a setup. Charlise had been drugged before she was murdered. Stein listens, unmoved, expression blank. Not a single tear. Prosecutors don't need a confession. They have a pattern. They have motive. They have the barrel. They argue that Stein's motive could have been jealousy, resentment, frustration, maybe even a twisted need for control over Charlise by removing her child. Or maybe something darker, A psychologist testifies that Stein exhibits signs of narcissistic behavior, lack of empathy, detachment from consequences. The jury sees that too. Meanwhile, the public turns on Callista. Even though she's not on trial, her actions are under a microscope. Why didn't she report her daughter missing? Why did she trust Stein at all? Why the gaps in her timeline? She doesn't have answers, only excuses. But the damage is done. Charlise Mutten is dead, and no version of the story brings her back. It begins with footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, echoing. The jury files in. 12 faces drained, eyes fixed forward. They've seen the footage, heard the testimony, absorbed the pain. Justin Stein rises. So does the nation. Everyone watching, everyone waiting. The judge asks the question, have you reached a verdict? A pause, a breath. Then, yes, Your Honor. It lands like a thunderclap. Guilty, guilty of murder, guilty of deception, guilty of robbing a child of her future. Stein shows no emotion, just a slow blink, a slight shift in posture. Callista's face breaks. She collapses and sobs. Is it grief, relief, or guilt of another kind? The courtroom explodes with reactions. Tears, shouts, a mother's wail, a family destroyed. But outside, the real aftermath begins. News vans swarm the courthouse steps. Headlines flood the internet. Justice for Charlise. Monster convicted. Mother still questioned. Public outrage turns nuclear. How did this happen under everyone's nose? Why was Charlise left with a man like Justin? Why was a convicted criminal welcomed back into Callista's life? More questions than answers. Charlise's school holds a vigil. Her classmates, just kids, leave flowers, toys, and notes by the school gates. One simply says, I miss you, Charlise. I hope heaven has horses. The internet mourns, but also demands accountability. Petitions are launched. Child safety reviews are called for. People ask why no red flags were raised when Charlise was pulled out of school. Why there wasn't an immediate welfare check. Callista disappears from the public eye. Some say she's in hiding. Others think she should be arrested. She's not charged, but she's not forgiven either. Then comes sentencing day. The court reconvenes. No cameras allowed. No microphones. Just justice. The judge's voice cuts like steel. This was a cruel, calculated, cowardly act. A betrayal of the most sacred trust, a child's safety. Justin Stein is sentenced to life in prison. No parole. No second chance. A life behind bars. A cage for the man who treated a child like an object to discard. Even in his final words, he shows no remorse. Just silence. Outside, people cheer. Some cry, but no one celebrates. Because Charlise is still gone. The aftermath doesn't end there. Social workers review every detail of the case. Family court records. Callista's history. The system's failure. Was it addiction? Neglect? Blind love? The public now sees the case not just as a tragedy, but a reckoning. A reminder of how easily children fall through the cracks. For weeks, people argue online. They post photos of Charlise smiling, in ponytails, on a horse, with her school medal, and always with that look. Wide-eyed, trusting, glowing. She loved fairy tales. She believed in happy endings. But her story ended in silence. The gavel has fallen. The court has spoken. And yet, it still doesn't feel over. Because there's no peace in the silence Charlise left behind. No justice that brings her back. Only an ache that refuses to fade. At Mount Wilson, the place where her body was found, people now come with candles. They whisper her name. Some kneel in the dirt. Others just stand, unable to move. A soft wind moves through the trees. Some swear they can feel her presence. Like a ghost that doesn't want to be forgotten. They place teddy bears at the base of the tree. Purple ones, her favorite color. And handmade signs that read, she deserved the world. Forever 9. Charlise Mutten has become more than a child. She's become a symbol of innocence stolen, of systemic failure, of love that should have protected, but didn't. The media quiets down. The headlines shift, but her story lingers, like a scar burned into a nation's memory. Teachers at her school still keep her desk empty. They say it would feel wrong to fill it. It's a silent tribute, A reminder that some wounds never heal. Her friends draw her pictures. Unicorns, hearts, bright skies, things she used to love. One child, barely old enough to spell, wrote, "I hope the stars are kind to you." Callista still hasn't resurfaced. Her name fades into the background, but the questions remain. What did she know? What did she know it? Could she have stopped it? Some say she was manipulated. Others say she was complicit. The line between grief and guilt blurred beyond recognition. And Justin Stein? Locked away, alone, forgotten by most, reviled by all. The kind of man whose name history spits out like venom. But this story was never really about him. It was about a little girl, bright-eyed, full of energy, carrying her whole life ahead of her, until someone decided she didn't deserve it. That decision, to end a child's life, cannot be explained, cannot be rationalized. It can only be mourned. And it is, deeply, globally, forever. Every year, people now gather on the anniversary of her death. They light lanterns. They release them into the night sky. One for every year she's missed. One for every birthday she'll never celebrate. It's quiet, painfully so, but it's the kind of silence that demands to be felt. Charlise didn't just vanish. She was failed by those who should have guarded her, by a system that didn't intervene, and by a world that only noticed when it was too late. But in that failure, something else was born. Resolve, a movement, a conversation, a promise that no child should ever be left in danger. That warning signs must be seen, acted on, believed. Her name is now written into reform proposals, her photo shown in conferences, her case studied in law classes, not as a cautionary tale, but as a scream, etched into policy, into memory, into history. Because Charlise Mutten is not just a victim. She is a voice, even in death, a voice that echoes in the halls of justice, a voice that whispers in every parent's mind, a voice that reminds the world. Some angels never make it home, but they still light the way.